And you can see that there's oak trees on the edge of the field, and I was walking down there and almost just out into the field were some smooth chanterelle. And so, wow. So I mean, I'm just now exploring and trying to find where the smooth chanterelle are on this farm. And I stepped back in the woods, and there they were. You know, they were just everywhere, and they had just kind of stretched out into the field just a little bit. But there's another story here about this line of trees that happens to be our property line. And the Amish neighbor harvested timber from the other side. And I spoke with him before he harvested the oak trees. And I shared with him that the smooth chanterelle were growing there underneath those oak trees. And he appreciated that and was kind enough not to harvest some of the oak trees in that area that he could have. So he too, was an environmentalist, excited about learning about the food smooth chanterelle, and so he did not harvest those trees. So a pretty place and a wonderful place to find the smooth chanterelle. Now there are other edible wild mushrooms that we can harvest. My focus is the smooth chanterelle. I found one, and Elaine and I were talking about that. I've been looking for 4 years, and this year I was stumbling over a path and I found one. How many of you have ever tried the morel? Okay, the morel is a wonderful flavor to it, and it's very. I actually just stumbled across it, and I will go back to that same site to see if there are more morels there next year. Those are real early spring edible mushrooms. They're wonderful. Anna and I took it home, divided it in half, and sauteed it, and it was just absolutely incredible. I have a feeling that my wild turkey and deer enjoy my morel mushrooms as well, and so I have to find the morel before they find it. All right, so they won't. Wild animals do not touch the smooth chanterelle, nor do bugs or slugs. Just kind of interesting. They just have some chemical features about themselves that the bugs and slugs don't even like the chanterelle, the smooth chanterelle. But yeah, I will be going back in March. They say wait till the tags are on the oak trees, and that's a good time to go and to look for the morel. Um, silly picture of me, okay? So I am aware that there are other wonderful edible mushrooms. This is the chicken of the woods. This one, I took this picture in May. I was just walking through my woods thinking, oh, in July I'm going to have the chicken of the woods to bring to my program so that I could show you. I was excited that this time of year I was going to have lots of the smooth chanterelle to bring to my program to show you. But guess what we haven't had? Right. The chicken of the woods is a totally different other program when it comes to what it is and how to prepare it. But it's a tasty mushroom as well. So you have the morel, the chicken of the woods, the lion's mane, the lobster mushroom. Maybe these are some that you've harvested or tried. I brought home a puffball from Wisconsin when I visited one of Anna's 6 nephews, 3 of them. They had puffballs growing in their yard. They brought these big things like the size of a soccer ball home and put them in the freezer. Didn't really care for them. My favorite by far, and that's why I've chosen this mushroom for you, is the smooth chanterelle. And it's here. It's here. At the end of the program, I will share where you can go walking at one of our national park areas and find lots of beautiful smooth chanterelle. Okay. All right. So this is a neat picture that I took after a harvest in the woods. You see how beautiful they are? And I wish with all my heart that you had some at your table right now so that you could smell and feel and touch and look at them, because that just, we learn by doing it great. That's our motto. And so I'm not able to do that for you But look very, very closely at this picture. And you have a copy of it as well, a smaller picture of it, but you can see the smoothness on the underside of this mushroom. It doesn't have blades. That was the other thing I wanted to do. I wanted to bring you samples of mushroom and oranges too that have blades that stop at the stalk. You don't want to mess with those. As a matter of fact, I had harvested a destroying angel for you. That's the only bladed mushroom, a fungi that I was able to find yesterday when I went foraging. Look up destroying angel. It was in my woods. It was about 10 minutes out there in the yard. I just tossed it because doing farmers market, waiting, it went ahead and deteriorated so you couldn't see the blade. Smells awful. It can stand about yay high and it looks like a football when it first starts to grow. But it's very toxic, very poisonous. People die every year from trying the destroying angel. I only mention that because you never ever want to say, well, I went to Lynn's program and I learned about the smooth chanterelle, right? And so I can go out and find me some. You should always go on a walk with someone who is knowledgeable about the smooth chanterelle. I am. How far in you drive 45 minutes to work each day? About 45 minutes from you. You have my email address. And so if anyone wants to come to our little space and want to take a walk with me, I'll be happy for you to come walk through the woods and I will introduce you to the smooth chanterelle and let you harvest some of my smooth or the smooth chanterelle that are there. Okay, so that will be an opportunity as well. But isn't that beautiful? Elaine said when I sent her this picture, she said that looks delicious. All right, and it is absolutely delicious. You can go online and find species lists that are available for each of your parks. All right. And the Big South Fork National Park Recreation Area, how many of you have been there and hiked around? It's not too far away from here. Beautiful place to go. And their national park species list lists the 4 chanterelles that are here. There's probably over 40 species. The one that's the most prominent is in the Pacific Northwest is the golden chanterelle. And there's a golden chanterelle and a white chanterelle in the Pacific Northwest. And we'll mention a little bit more about those in just a minute. So you have the cinnabar, and I'll have a picture of that in a little while. It's only about 2 inches high. I want to go out into the woods and gather mushroom. I'll be down clipping in July. But they do say the cinnabar is very, very tasty. And then there's a yellowfoot, a scaly chanterelle, and then the 4th one is smooth chanterelle. Hard, you just can't mistake the smooth chanterelle. So your forage areas can be to partner with a friend who owns timber. How many of you have timber? How many of you have 40 to 60-year-old timber? The timber's been growing for at least 40 to 60 years because that's the habitat that the smooth chanterelle and most of your fungi enjoy anyway. But you might be able to find someone who does own timber. So you got the Cherokee National Forest, your Great Smoky Mountain National Forest. You may not forage in state parks. It's not allowed in state parks. But your national parks, you can take a hike in July, this time of year, after 2 or 3 days of rain, and go for a hike. And don't let me forget to tell you where to go when the program's over with. When you do go, yesterday, well, where I went to a national park close by, and I talked with staff about going on this trail to see if I could find some smooth chanterelles. Usually rains that way, but it was dry like it is here. No fungi is going to grow without water. But when you do go, you should always go in and talk to the staff there at the visitor center. Let them know you want. Yes, rain.
I've got lots of rain. I live in Macon County.
You're in Macon County, so you had lots, and where is Macon County?
It's up for you.
It's up above Nashville on the Kentucky border.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Very fortunate.
You're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said that was more about the rain, and all the rain. I'm going, what is this rain you speak of?
I had a good half-inch rain last Thursday, but half inch is nothing. You know, it just absolutely, I was thankful, have no doubt. I was thankful, but it was like, not enough. All right, so if you're on a trail and you see the chanterelles over here, you want to walk in and get away from the trail just a little bit, right? You don't want, because other people might want to come through and to see the smooth chanterelles, so you don't want to go just harvesting right at the trails, move off just a little bit. The smooth chanterelle starts as little buttons, little orange buttons that eventually grow into a larger product. So they say to leave immature buttons and let them to develop. Problem is, immature buttons are more flavorful than the larger ones. You know, people know that. Overstepping or stepping around in and on, trampling, if you will, is probably more devastating for the chanterelle. So you want to avoid overstepping. And one of the things that I've enjoyed doing is developing this intimacy with where the patches are on my farm. I have 50 acres of these woods. There's creek, there's ravines where there usually is water, but there's no water. Just chips yesterday. I picked a couple up trying to find them at home. But you always, with all harvesters, need to share an ethic of careful harvesting and understand the importance of forest management. So when you go out to forage, it's always important, like I mentioned, to have another person that's familiar with identifying the species. You always want to be assured of 100% of the identity of that mushroom as well. Don't think it's okay and try it. And then you want to avoid foraging in areas with heavy pesticides, herbicides. The suggestion too is when you consume mushroom, you want to eat the mushroom, you should never eat it raw. Never say, I wonder what that tastes like, and try to eat it raw. You always should cook it before consuming. Because of the time of year, chance for yellow jackets, the chance for copperheads. We don't make a first aid kit for copperheads, but it's always good to make a first aid kit. And of course, I stopped at the visitor center yesterday to let them know, because I was by myself on this trail, that I was going to go in to do some foraging. Protective covering, of course, clothing too. It's hot in July and August. Nobody wants to go in and forage with boots on and pants on and long sleeve shirts on and a hat on, but you're better off doing that is to go in with sandals and tennis shoes, and because of the potential for a copperhead. Okay, so foraging equipment. It's good to have a field guide. I have a basket here. Just a little market basket. So when I go foraging for the chanterelle mushroom, I use this because when I harvest the mushroom, it allows for spores to drop through and perhaps remain at the site, which is what we want. There is a different research on, should I pull up a mushroom? Is it okay to pull up a mushroom? Just pluck it out of the leaf litter? Should I cut it with a knife? Should I use scissors? And this is what I like to do, because I've got this little stretch here. I can snip right to the ground and put my mushroom in the basket. Also, if you just pick the mushroom up or just pull it up and put it in the basket, what else are you putting in the basket? Dirt. Yeah, you're putting in leaf litter, soil, dirt. Yeah. So it's better off just to either cut with a knife or to use a pair of scissors as far as that's concerned. Although you're not hurting the mycelium, you're not hurting the mushroom, the growing area by pulling them up. It's okay to pull them up if that's what you want to grab and go. it's okay to do that. So comfortable hiking pants, long, we've talked about that. Always use insect repellent. I love walking sticks anymore, and then of course bring your cell phone too when you're out. So that's a little bit of foraging equipment information that I thought would be important to hear. So you think of the chanterelle, been around for a long time, 47 million years, this smooth chanterelle. And there's over 40 edible species of chanterelles all over the world in every country except Arctica. And there are all kinds of incredible names. For the Japanese have a different name, the Hispanics have a different name, and it is globally known, renowned as the best edible forest mushroom. I put lots of freezer bags of sauteed chanterelle mushrooms in my freezer every year, as long as range, of course. It is a multi-million-dollar business, and it's a billion-dollar business around the world. But in the Pacific Northwest, with the golden chanterelle or the white chanterelle, it is a multi-million-dollar business, commercially harvesting the mushrooms and selling them. So I had a 95 price there of $13 a pound in the Pacific Northwest. The local markets, $20 to $40 a pound if folks were harvesting the chanterelle and selling them. That's one reason why maybe in the national park even they would have a limitation on, and you would want to limit. You don't need to have 10 baskets of chanterelle mushrooms, so probably that would be a concern. So yeah, we got 440. Can you imagine 441 million tons?
Yeah.
Yeah. A pound of chanterelle mushrooms is like 4 cups of the chanterelle. So the local market average is 24 a pound, dried $8 a pound. So I did mention that every continent in the world except for Antarctica. So you have the chanterelle used medicinally through time and used as a food through time. You look here, the Chinese have documented mushroom use, the chanterelle mushroom use since 245 AD. So been around for a long time and has an economic impact, especially in the Great Northwest area. Of course, we're all interested in the medicinal and health benefits of the mushroom, and it's good for us. Those of us who are moving on in years perhaps need less protein from red meats, and just the fact of life. And so the mushroom is a great addition to spaghettis and chilies and on top of pizzas, if you will, and it's a myriad of ways that you could use the chanterelle mushroom. So it's rich in antioxidants. Vitamin D is a biggie with the chanterelle mushroom, lots of minerals and vitamin A. Of course, they say when you're enjoying the chanterelle or mushrooms not to consume with alcohol. There's a reason for that. I understand. And it should be cooked very well. And you should start with small amounts if you've never tried mushroom before. I don't have fresh mushrooms to put at your side, but I do have some prepared mushrooms, the smooth chanterelle from some mushroom that I froze this time last year. And it still has a wonderful flavor a year later. Okay. So what do the chanterelles need? Rain. They need lots of rain. And they need a well-drained forest soil. And they need low nitrogen, a pH of 4.5 to 5. Age of host trees, they're in a symbiotic relationship with these trees. You can't go buy chanterelle spores and grow chanterelles. You can do shiitakes, you can do oyster mushrooms, but it's quite interesting that you can go on the market and buy chanterelle spores. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're going to be waiting years and even, well, it's not a good choice. Okay, so don't recommend it at all. And then, of course, the high soil humidity, which is important as well. Yes, go ahead.
So when will they usually come out about this time, I
Yeah.
understand, July and August. So if it starts raining in August and September, will they still come out?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They will. They will. They're just, that fungi is just needing the rain to encourage it to produce the fruit, which is the mushroom.
So
Just needs rain. But it's sitting there.
you don't have them currently in your woods. There's nothing you can do to make them grow.
I thought about going out and throwing some buckets of water out there where I know that they were before this program, but it was labor intensive to do that. And, yeah.
I mean, I've
You
got
might
woods,
encourage them.
woods, but I've
Yeah.
also got pines and hemlocks in those woods,
Yeah,
which I think that have a fairly acid soil.
they do have an acid soil.
But I don't think I've seen those.
Not so much in the pine. This particular smooth chanterelle really enjoys the deciduous trees of the poplar, the hickory, and the oak. Right? Yeah, they are in a symbiotic relationship with those trees. Good questions. Any more? Okay, so the oak tree seems to be the common place where the chanterelle love to grow. And just in your mind, picture this beautiful oak that's growing. And oftentimes that's as far as you see this beautiful oak. And we know it has wonderful leaves, and eventually it's going to have incredible acorns for the squirrels. And we don't think about the mass of what's going on underneath that oak tree. It is fascinating to explore. Someone called it the wood wide web, not the world wide web, but the wood wide web under the tree. Fascinating. As you've got this taproot that sinks down, you've got these lateral roots that are reaching out for nutrients and for water to secure it. Incredible. 6 times the canopy of your oak tree, those roots stretch out. But not only do you have those roots, but you have a network of mycelium. Fascinating. Just absolutely fascinating. So I read somewhere that a cubic inch of topsoil contains enough fungal cells to reach 8 miles if placed end to end. What amazing thing is going on underneath the oak tree. So your mushroom, especially the chanterelle, is an ectomycorrhiza fungi, right? It's Greek for fungus, rhiza for roots, ecto for it forms fungus roots around the tree root tips. This mycelium that's just underneath this tree is just absolutely fascinating. And we couldn't have the fungi growth, the fruiting bodies, the mushroom, without this mycelium network. So the fungi then, the chanterelle, the fruiting body, fungi too, are in this symbiotic relationship with the trees. And I bet Graham has learned about that in science, haven't you? Yeah. In other words, the mycelium and fungi help to provide water and nutrients for the tree. And then the tree provides the carbohydrates that the fungi need to grow. Amazing. I bet you did. Yeah. So the smooth chanterelle then is kind of like an apple that falls from a tree, but it's the fruiting body. That orange thing I showed you a picture of just a little bit ago, it's the fruiting body of a certain fungi. Because chanterelles obtain carbohydrate nutrition from living trees through a symbiotic relationship, forests are essential, very essential to their survival and productivity. So you can't go take chanterelle spores and put them in your garden. All right? Can't do that.
Sure they can.
All right. And then Elaine said that she found a morel, and her question for me was, well, should I leave it or should I harvest it? If you find a smooth chanterelle, should I leave it or should I harvest it? The chicken of the woods that I found in the spring, I chose to leave it mostly because I didn't want to fool with it. I was doing other things, right? So I didn't harvest it. But whether you leave it or harvest it, there's always going to be potential to cause mycelium for more morels, for more chicken in the woods, and for more smooth chanterelle. It's fascinating. Bring on the fungi. Okie dokie. How we doing on time, Jessica? Okay, we good? All right, so I have a picture of here. This should be the smooth chanterelle at your site, right? And these are some of the characteristics that you need to look for. It is a woodland mushroom. If you go to damp places in your woods, you will find it. It is harvested from, it says summer to early fall, June to October. And you will find that it does grow in the presence of moss and other types of undergrowths, such as Virginia creeper and grass as well. So you can see in the picture there that you have that bright orange color to yellow. You can see that the caps are kind of wavy. See the little wavy caps? They don't start out that way. They start out round. So they have these wavy caps. But what you'll see is that the flesh is white. Can you see that? All right, up underneath, call it the flesh if you will, but that's the reproductive part of these smooth chanterelle. They're ridges. I call them ridges instead of blades. Some mushrooms have what we call blades that end right at the stalk. You'll see just rows and rows and rows and rows of blades. But this chanterelle has these incredible ridges that run all the way down the stalk. There's no misidentifying. As a matter of fact, if you take one, and that was the other thing I was going to have you do, and break it apart, you'll see the picture that I have there in the skillet. You can see the white flesh of the chanterelle mushroom, so it's going to be solid when you break it apart and be white as well. So the ridges do appear forked, and that it's a false gill. They call it a false gill mushroom because it doesn't have true gills. True gills are blade gills that stop right at the stalk. So if you do a little bit of looking on the internet, you'll see that. And of course, a heavy summer rain will trigger that fruiting, which we haven't had. Do you have any questions about the ID pictures there at all? See Anna? Okay. Okay, we're gonna take a real quick look at a video since I couldn't have a chanterelle in front of you. And this video is by a young man by the name of Adam Harrington. He has a program called Learn Your Land. And he's just an incredible researcher, educator, and he does a variety of video YouTube programs. And so he did this video about the difference between the chanterelle and the jack-o'-lantern mushroom. The jack-o'-lantern is very poisonous and commonly mistaken for the chanterelle. So how do we get to that?
So if we'll go to the slide that it's on. There we go.
There it is.
Now you mentioned the destroying angel mushroom. Does it look like this also, or is that just
No, it's
one-
white.
So that was just what you were telling us about.
Yeah, I was
It's
just
very-
telling you about it. It needs to describe it. Look it up. And I use that because it does have the gills are blade-like gills. And I'm,
Okay.
yeah, and I mentioned it too because we need to be informed. We need to use field guides. We need to have somebody to show us so that we don't accidentally consume a mushroom that's not good for us. Right.
You wouldn't want to grow a poisonous mushroom. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Adam Harrington, and this is the chanterelle mushroom. Cantharellus laterideus, the smooth chanterelle. It's a delicious, wild, edible fungus that can be found growing during the summer months, mycorrhizally in association with various hardwood trees. Right behind me is a mushroom that kind of looks like the chanterelle mushroom, but it's not the same thing. This is the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, Omphalotus alludens. It's a beautiful fungus. It's an ecologically important fungus, and it's a toxic mushroom. It's a poisonous mushroom. It'll cause severe gastrointestinal distress after consuming it. And every year, people make the mistake of foraging for this mushroom and eating it, thinking that they're foraging and eating the chanterelle mushroom. They get very sick doing so. and that's a mistake I do not want you to make. So in this video, we are going to do a thorough examination regarding the similarities and differences between the edible chanterelle mushroom and the poisonous jack-o'-lantern mushroom. And the one that we will be discussing in this video, as I mentioned, is the smooth chanterelle. Now you might be saying, hey, I forage for a variety of chanterelles, and they don't look like this one right here. And you're probably right. You know, that genus Cantharellus is quite a large genus of mycorrhizal fungi. There's a lot of variation within that genus. Some chanterelles are large, some are medium-sized, some are quite small even at maturity. Some chanterelles are orange, some are yellow, some are reddish, some are pinkish, some have brownish hues. Some have very well-developed ridges on the fertile surface. Some are relatively smooth on the fertile surface. Some grow singly, some grow scattered, some grow gregariously, some even grow in small clusters. So even though there are some differences between the chanterelle species, there are a lot of commonalities that characterize that Cantharellus genus. We are going to use this one, the smooth chanterelle, Cantharellus laterideus, as our reference mushroom. So to get started, let's go see if we can find more of the smooth chanterelle mushroom. So this is the chanterelle mushroom right here, the smooth chanterelle, Cantharellus laterideus. If you take a look around, you can see a bunch of them popping up. And notice the kind of habitat that I'm in. You know, this is a creek bottom right here. This is a hillside. It's just coming up terrestrially out of the soil. So this is a medium to large size edible mushroom that can often be found in abundance along paths, on hillsides, in hardwood areas, specifically underneath oak trees and hickory trees. So it forms a mutualistic symbiosis with these various hardwood trees. This one will grow singly, so by itself, scattered like you see right here, gregariously, so you'll see a bunch of them. Sometimes you'll see small clusters as well. If you do find this mushroom in a cluster, usually it's in a cluster of no more than 4 to 5 mushrooms. This is very common in eastern North America during the summer and fall months. The cap of this mushroom is typically between 1 to 4 inches across. It's flat when young, and it becomes vase-shaped when older. The cap, especially when older, usually has a wavy, irregular margin, and the cap is smooth and yellowish-orange, almost like an orangish egg yolk color. The underside of the smooth chanterelle is, no surprise, fairly smooth, especially when young, though it can become shallowly wrinkled and vein-like with age. These blunt ridges or veins on the underside are decurrent, meaning they run down the stem. The stem is between 1 to 4 inches tall and half an inch to 1 inch thick, and it typically tapers to the base. The spore print of the smooth chanterelle is pale pinkish yellow. As we take a closer look, we could see that these chanterelle mushrooms are growing singly, meaning there's only one coming up out of a time, and that's pretty typical for this species, Cantharellus laterideus. None of these right here are growing in groups, and even if they were growing in clusters, there would only be about 4 to 5 mushroom max per cluster. So one right there, one over there. You can see some hiding out over here in the stilt grass. This is a very invasive plant. This is not typical for me to find chanterelles in stilt grass. I don't just go to stilt grass areas to look for chanterelles. And this patch is rather local, so it doesn't really extend beyond this stilt grass. So this is a little microclimate for these chanterelle mushrooms. But if we take a look around, we can see a variety of hardwood trees, specifically northern red oak trees, white oak trees as well. There's some witch hazel in here, there's some hickory trees and some other species. These are primarily the trees that I'm finding these chanterelles in association with. As we make our way up the hill, we can see some more chanterelles just popping up. Not always easy to find in stilt grass, but generally a very easy mushroom to find. And these ones are nice and fresh, even though it's been rather dry. So I guess the stilt grass is helping to keep these conditions nice and moist. So notice that they're growing by themselves. Some of them are close together, but not really attached. And again, if they were attached, it wouldn't be a very dense cluster, just a couple together. So again, notice the kind of habitat that I'm in. This is a very good habitat and season, so midsummer, to find chanterelle mushrooms. So now we're back to discuss one of the toxic lookalikes to the chanterelle mushroom, which is the jack-o'-lantern, Omphalotus illudens. This is a medium to large size, bright orange, poisonous fungus that grows in association with dead wood. Notice this big dead tree right here. This is a big dead oak tree, and many times this will be fruiting directly on dead substrates, snags, stumps, and logs, but occasionally you'll find it growing away from these dead substrates. That's the case right here. You see it fruiting about a foot away from this dead tree. It's fruiting from buried wood, so oftentimes you'll see it fruiting from buried wood. Jack-o'-lanterns grow throughout North America. This specific species, Omphalotus illudens, grows throughout eastern North America, and the season of this one is summer through fall. Its cap is between 3 to 8 inches wide, convex at first, Then it becomes flat and somewhat funnel-shaped with age. The margin of the cap is inrolled when young, and it becomes wavy when older. When you look at the underside of the cap of a jack-o'-lantern mushroom, you will see distinct plate-like gills that are attached to the stem and slightly run down the stem. These gills are closely spaced together, and they're typically some shade of orange or yellow-orange. The stalk of the jack-o'-lantern mushroom is between 2 to 5 inches long and up to 3/4 of an inch thick. The stalk is tapered at the base, smooth and orange. The spore color of the jack-o'-lantern mushroom is pale cream. So we have a delicious wild edible fungus, the chanterelle Cantharellus laterideus. We have one of its toxic lookalikes, which is the jack-o'-lantern, Omphalotus illudens. Now that we went over some key identifying features for each species, let's dig a little deeper and really pull apart some of the differences. The first big difference between the chanterelle and the jack-o'-lantern is that the chanterelle is a mycorrhizal fungus. In other words, it grows terrestrially from the soil underneath trees in a mutualistic symbiosis with various living tree species. The chanterelle does not grow on wood, nor does it grow in association with dead trees. The jack-o'-lantern mushroom, on the other hand, is a saprophytic fungus that grows on wood, whether you see the wood or not. So sometimes it'll be growing directly on wood, dead trees, stumps, logs. Many times, though, it'll be growing away from dead trees, stumps, or logs, but it'll always be attached via the mycelium to its woody substrate. The second big difference between the two mushrooms is that the chanterelle grows singly, scattered, or gregariously, and occasionally in small clusters. And this is something that is not always mentioned in field guides, the observation that chanterelles will occasionally grow in small clusters. However, if you do find chanterelles growing in clusters, the clusters will most often be small, typically containing upwards of 4 to 5 mushrooms per cluster or less. The jack-o'-lantern mushroom, on the other hand, typically grows in very dense clusters, containing upwards of 12 individual mushrooms or more connected at their tapered bases. You rarely find just one single individual jack-o'-lantern mushroom growing by itself. Instead, you find it growing as part of a dense cluster. The third big difference between chanterelles and jack-o'-lanterns can be found on their fertile surfaces, or the undersides of the caps. The chanterelle, generally speaking, contains blunt folds or forked ridges with cross veins in between. These thickened ridges are firmly attached and difficult to pull apart. Most field guides will refer to these thickened ridges as quote-unquote false gills because they do not always look like the gills you would see in traditional gilled mushrooms. Though that term false gill is actually somewhat highly contested, especially amongst amateur mushroom hunters. And that's because some chanterelles do have structures that are more distinctly gill-like than the ridges found in other chanterelle species. But regardless of what you call them, these folds or ridges can still be rather thick, relatively speaking, and they do constitute a major difference between chanterelles and jack-o'-lanterns. The jack-o'-lantern, on the other hand, does contain very distinct plate-like gills that can be easily pulled apart, especially with something like tweezers. These gills are not blunt, they are not thickened, and they do not have cross veins in between. These are very conspicuous gills that you would not confuse for any other kind of fertile surface. Another difference between the chanterelle and the jack-o'-lantern is the color of the interior flesh. The chanterelle, in many cases, contains a whitish interior flesh that almost resembles string cheese. The jack-o'-lantern's interior flesh, however, is yellowish orange all the way through, and it does not resemble string cheese. And last but certainly not least, the smell of the two mushrooms is different. So whenever you smell a chanterelle mushroom, many times it smells somewhat fruity, almost like apricots. Now many times it takes an active imagination to detect that. This one smells kind of fruity. The jack-o'-lantern, on the other hand, doesn't really have a distinct smell, though it does kind of smell mushroomy. So a mushroomy aroma from the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, but it really doesn't smell fruity. So chanterelle, somewhat fruity, just mushroomy with the jack-o'-lantern. So as I mentioned many times in this video, the chanterelle is a choice wild edible fungus. Just make sure you cook it first before you eat it. Jack-o'-lantern is a toxic mushroom that will cause severe gastrointestinal distress upon consumption. And I have several friends who have eaten this mushroom, and it wasn't a pleasant experience, according to them. So this will not kill you. This is not a deadly toxic mushroom, but it's an extreme gastrointestinal distressor. It'll cause severe cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, general weakness that can last for several days, so you do not want to consume this mushroom. Now, the toxicity associated with this mushroom is attributed to a class of compounds known as illudins, specifically illudin S and illudin M. And those compounds, interestingly, have been studied for their antibacterial properties, antiviral properties, and anti-tumor properties. And that one compound, illudin S, has been converted by researchers into a semi-synthetic compound known as irofulven, which is being studied for its role in treating various cancers, specifically pancreatic cancer, with successes but also some failures along the way. There's still a lot of toxicity associated with that compound, but maybe in the future we'll see it being marketed. So just a few things to wrap up this video. Whenever you're looking to identify any mushroom, not just chanterelles or jack-o'-lanterns, it's not enough to just read books. I mean, we all know that. We look in books and it just doesn't look like what we find outside. Videos are good as well, like this video right here, but honestly, if you really want to learn chanterelles and jack-o'-lantern mushrooms and any wild mushroom, go out with people who know these mushrooms. Go out with people who are more experienced than you. And this is how I learned. This is how I got my start. I went out with people who knew way more than me, and I still go out with people who know way more than me. And that's how I'm able to learn this information and feel confident foraging for these wild organisms. So just ask around. You might not find people who will show you their favorite spots, but maybe you'll find people who will bring home chanterelle mushrooms and jack-o'-lantern mushrooms and show you in person what the differences and similarities are. Also, you can join a mushroom club. That's one of the best ways to learn mushrooms. If you're anywhere near Western Pennsylvania, the Western Pennsylvania Mushroom Club is one of the best organizations in the world when it comes to wild mushrooms. But if you live in a different area, I'm sure there's a mushroom club in your area. So just go out, people, and you will feel confident in identifying any wild mushroom. Thanks so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. I hope you'll learn something. I encourage you to go to learnyourland.com, sign up for the email newsletter. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're not a subscriber, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the Learn Your Land YouTube channel. You can follow me on social media at Learn Your Land. Thanks again so much. Hope this is able to clear up some information regarding the edible chanterelle mushroom and the toxic jack-o'-lantern mushroom. Happy foraging.
I wish I had his enthusiasm for presentations. He's incredible, isn't he? Everything he does is just like that. So I just think the world of him. Okay. So, where's the next slide?
You should be able to just click to it.
Okay.
It should go back to working.
Push it.
Okay.
Where's the?
Nope.
Okay, hold on.
I gotta put it back over on
Okay.
this part, I think.
Sorry.
There we go. Is that where you want it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you harvest the chanterelle, you bring them home. You can keep them in a paper bag in the refrigerator for 10 days. I wouldn't wash them. I put them in the paper bag, and as you use them, then you would want to brush them off. Well, you could brush them off with a paper bag. So whatever cleanliness effort that you'd like to do, but they do last for 10 days in the paper bag at home. I love to freeze them, and what I do is I have a picture of the chanterelles last year that I have broken apart. You can see how I broke them apart, and I put them in the recommendations, put them in a cast iron skillet on the stove, and then you saute them until they cook down to a beautiful product. You're going to get to see that in just a little bit. Let it cool down, drain it some. I remove some of the moisture, and then I put it in the freezer. And they do last up to a year. Some people like to dehydrate mushrooms. I don't find that particularly palatable. I'd much rather have them in the freezer. Dehydrating, to me, tends to change the flavor and the texture of the mushroom. When I can have something that tastes just like came out of the woods, but I love wood gardening, obviously. Okay, I would choose freezing over dehydrating. So some folks like to dehydrate so that they can then wood them up, and then they have the powder for different uses as well. So if you dehydrate it, do you saute it first or dehydrate it raw? You would dehydrate it raw. Yeah, just like that. Okay, let's see more. So what I have for you to try is a recipe that I found, and there's tons of recipes, and it's just so fun to explore all the different ways that you can use the smooth chanterelle. This one has a story to it. It's about a story about a young man who loved visiting his grandma. He's got a grandma, 6 grandsons your age, a little bit older, right? The story goes that he loved visiting his grandma this time of year because they could go to the woods and harvest the smooth chanterelle. And then there was corn. You know, this is sweet corn time now. If you planted it early enough, it's so wet in May, I got my corn out late, right? And so now it's struggling to grow ear corn because it's so dry, even though I irrigate. But he loved this particular recipe, and so you're sautéing the onion and using the tarragon, and then you saute the chanterelle mushroom, then you have the fresh corn, and it just makes a wonderful combination, especially with the tarragon. Now, of course, the recommendation is that if you've never tried this particular mushroom, because we never know how our body is going to react to the fungi, even though it's been cooked, that perhaps you want to just taste a small bite of it. I don't want you to be brave today, all right? But if you have had experience with smooth chanterelles, anybody ever harvested a smooth chanterelle? Elaine, you have? Anybody else? No? So this will give you an opportunity just to see what it looks like after it's been sauteed before it goes into your freezer bag, and then to try this particular recipe. Before we try this, because I want to end and then we'll try and then you can ask some questions. It did mention the jack-o'-lantern, Bram, and so you see where it says it glows in the dark? There's an enzyme apparently in the gill, luciferase. It makes them bioluminescent. This is my picture right here. I took this. I've got a 150-year-old couple oak trees are better. They're huge oak trees, and of course they've lived their years, but they're still hanging in there. But the jack-o'-lantern mushroom found my oak tree, right? But it's in October when I see it. And that's really cool. That's Halloween time, and you're telling me about toxic mushrooms around Halloween that glow in the dark. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I took my flashlight up there, of course, stepped up there to see if I could see it blue in there.
Into adult.
Yeah, but you definitely don't want to eat these. And like he said, I did have a friend from a church who was given some of these, and he thought that they were the smooth chanterelle when he ended up in the hospital. Didn't feel good. I was Dominic Anna for a long time. Okay. Yeah. So I do have some resources for you if you access this video online. We'll try this product. Would you like to try and see, experience, and touch and smell? That's always a good thing to do. We'll do that first. And I'm going to have you. This is the corn and the mushroom, the chanterelle, the tarragon, the onion. Right, and she'll come around, and you have a little fork, you have a little plate. You can stir if you don't want to try it if you're concerned, and then I'll come around with some chanterelle that you can kind of go through, take a look at, and see what it looks like, and smell the flavor of it, even after a whole year being in a freezer. It's pretty good. Thank you. But I would just try a little bite of it. Try a bite. And when you just saute it down and freeze it, you just put it in the skillet dry and let it cook down. If you put butter or anything or water. I've read both. I've been just happy with just letting it cook down. It cooks out all the water basically till it looks like this. When I'm through cooking, it looks just like this. You don't salt it or don't do anything with it. Butters can break down fatty acids, and the butter can break down in the freezer and give it off flavor. So you don't have them. Carmen, you don't want to try? Would you want to try it? No. This was now. I did use a little yogurt, the yogurt butter in this. I just have a little bit of oil to it.